Hello, everyone. Today we'll introduce a convenient app for the trading stock. It's called Robinhood, and it will be introduced by Group 9. And Brand, Cooper, Kale, and Jesse will give the presentation.
So here, Robinhood has a unique mission that they want to provide stock market access to everyone and to inspire a new generation of investors. Robinhood is kind of a unique application. They do not charge any commission for any of their trades, which is really rare. Most brokerage houses or stock investor sites charge as much as $10 a trade, which can really eat into the user's profits because they have to pay that commission when they both buy and sell the stock. Robinhood wants to change that, and they don't charge a single commission for any of the stock transactions. They actually make their money on the interest that they earn with the investors' money that they haven't actually dumped into a stock. So that's how they make their money, and it's really changing the way that that these stocks are traded and the way that commissions are generated. They provide a great service that others are having a hard time competing with. So inside of the Robinhood app, they can trade as many as 5,000 different securities, different stocks at no commissions. So it's really fantastic. They do allow for an upgrade. The users can upgrade for a certain monthly fee that you can have extended trading hours. So you can trade during when the market is normally closed, you can still trade then. And it does give certain users extra buying power if they are doing a lot of volume of trading. It is for a monthly fee. But for the normal user, there isn't a monthly fee. There isn't an annual fee. There's no commissions. You can just buy and sell the stocks as you want to. Another thing that's really interesting about Robinhood is they don't have any stores. You can't walk into a building to get stock trading advice. And you actually can't even trade stocks on the Robinhood website. It is all based on the application for smartphones. So that does a couple of different things. The first one is it keeps the stock or the price low. Obviously, there's no commissions, so they need to find ways to save money. So they don't have those other features that normal brokerages homes have. But that's okay because the stock is mostly geared towards millennials, and I don't need to go talk to my broker face to face in order to execute trades. So for me personally, I'm totally fine with just doing my own stock trades on an app. The last thing that Robinhood doesn't do is they don't provide a whole lot of research data. It's really just a basic, as you can see on the screen here, it's just a basic chart. It does bring in a couple of basic data points, but all that research and the different charts that other brokerages have, Robinhood doesn't do that as a way to keep the commissions really low.
And as you can imagine, since they don't charge any commissions, they do have a lot of users who are starting to use the Robinhood app. Currently, they have about 2 million users, which doesn't seem like a ton, but they've only been up and going since 2014. So they've really been able to acquire a lot of users because they do offer this free commission trading where most brokerages cost $7 to $10 for each trade. Since the company opened in 2014, they've executed over $30 billion worth of trades. The company was founded by Vladimir Tenev and Baiju Bhatt. Both of the founders actually worked in developing trading platforms for financial institutions over in New York. And they had the idea that they wanted to open up something new that was free that would appeal to millennials. So that's where the idea came from. And they got the funds to open up Robinhood, and then from there have grown relatively fast over the last 3 years.
So we just wanted to give a technical overview. Like we said, there is no website that you can go to trade. it's accessible on smartphones. So you get your iPad, your iWatch, your iPhone. It's also available on Android phones as well. So they really take pride in making it geared towards those millennials that can do everything on their phone anyway. So they really like that. In order for someone to open an account in Robinhood, they obviously have to create a username and password. They link their bank account into their Robinhood account, and the user has to deposit a minimum of $10 in order to get started. Luckily, with all the 5,000 different securities, there are stocks that you can trade that are less than $10, so you can start investing right away. You can, on the Robinhood app itself, you can look up a stock. You can see, you can look it up by the ticker name or also the name of the company itself. And obviously, you can buy and sell stocks right from the app as well. So once you get your account set up, you can start trading right away, and it's a really slick way to handle new investors that want to get into the market, in a very inexpensive way to do so.
So this is our conceptual model. Our two main entities here are obviously the investor and the securities. For the investor, most of the information that we got here was just from when we set up our accounts. We have some composite or attributes on address and bank account and name. The unique identifier here is the user ID. And then on the security, we have a bunch of information that comes from the app. So when you're looking at the security, you'll see a bunch of stats and stuff that are there to help the investor decide on whether to buy that app. We have some multi-valued attributes on quarterly earnings and recent news. And then the unique identifier here is QSIP. That's something that every security has. It's sort of like a barcode for each security. So that's what we used for the QSIP. And then, so when an investor buys a security or sells a security, there will be something called a confirm created, and that's captured by the traded to. And then on the traded to, we have a reference number, which is a unique identifier for that entity. And then we have a transaction code, which just basically says what type of transaction happened, whether it's a buy or a sale or a dividend or whatever. And then we capture the trade date and settlement date and the quantity. And then branching off from that, we have the buys and sales entities. So if an investor buys a security, then he holds it in his account. And so that would be captured in the buy entity. So we'd be capturing the total cost that he paid or she paid for that, and how many that they currently have. And then in sales, we'd be capturing, so if they sell it, then we have to keep track of that information as well, just for tax purposes. So we're going to capture the proceeds on that side. And these are weak entity types just because the investor and the security have to exist, but they don't have to actually hold any securities, and they don't have to actually have any securities sold. And then this is just describing the degree of the relationship. So it's a 4-degree relationship, since there are 4 entities coming off of this trade. And then the weak entity types, just like I said, it includes the buys and the sales. They don't have to exist, but the securities and investors do have to exist.
We will talk about the relational model. So for relational model, there has 7 relations, and it describes the relations between each table. And for each table, it has a primary key to identify the relation. So there are like unrealized, realized, and activities. There has about 3 identify attributes. And the COSIP entity is referenced in other table as a foreign keys. Next, we will talk about the physical model. For the physical model, it talks about the process of the database, and by comparing with the relational model, it shows the types of the attributes. And
so here on the security table, we're going to go through and kind of go through each one of the different tables here and kind of describe them. So I have the first one, which is the security table. This is the security of the stock itself. This is the basic information that you can find when you look up the stock. We suppose and we kind of estimate that Robinhood doesn't actually harvest or doesn't produce this information itself. They probably go and grab all this information from a central database of some kind, but the principle here is the same, and so we chose to include this into our project. And there are some features that Robinhood doesn't actually pull. For example, they don't pull the beta of the stock, so it really works to simplify and to make the user to make it a simple user interface here. But they pull things like the stock symbol, the security name. They pull a little bit of information about what the stock is, what they've kind of invested in, or how they do business. And they also pull the price information. So this is the current stock price, the opening price, the closing price, the 52-week high, the 52-week low, all of these different statistics that the average investor will find popular or helpful as they're making their choice. So here we use some pretend data. Obviously, we couldn't actually pull real market values because they change almost every second. And we would also like to say here that just because we highlighted this information does not make us professional traders, and so we are not giving any advice to anyone that's watching. We don't want that to be on our shoulders. So we did use some real companies here. We used Apple and Twitter, Tesla. Those are real companies that you can trade on the Robinhood app. And so you can see here with the information that some of these are ETFs, some of these are stocks. We pulled in we have the current price here. All of this information is found to help the investor make a decision as to whether they want to buy or sell this specific stock.
Perfect. So we have about 2 minutes left. We won't go into too much detail on all of the tables. For the investor table, this table is really created when the investor creates their account with Robinhood. So they're inputting their name, their email, phone number, and it's everything that Robinhood will need for tax purposes and to show that the user has a social security number, is a citizen of the United States. So as you can see here, we added some sample data in here, and all of the users in here were just fictional users, and we can move over to the activity table from here.
So on the activity table, we're just capturing the reference number, which is the identifier for each trade. And then the QSIP is the foreign key that is referencing back to the security table. And then user ID is a foreign key that references back to the investor table. And then we just capture the trade date and the settlement date. The settlement date is always, it's something that's on every trade. And we have a transaction code just to say what type of transaction took place. And we capture the quantity and the amount. And then we have this table of sample data. This is how it would look. I work in Morgan Stanley, and I see their database. This is how an activity table would look. There's some sample reference numbers, and there you can see the transaction codes. We have some buys and some sales in there. So yeah.
Here for the unrealized table, this is when someone will actually buy a stock. So we need to capture that information. So it says when the date was, how much stock they actually purchased for what price, And so we inputted some sample data here to capture this one.
Perfect. The realized table is when a user sells a stock. And so similar to the unrealized table, we have to capture the dates and capture the quantity, capture the cost. So we can go over to the sample data and take a look. These are all inputs that we put in. So this is what it would look like when a user sells their stock and is getting the proceeds from the transaction.
The quarterly earning table just gives the security quarterly earning and include the cost save quarter and earnings. And here is what it looks like. And there for the earning, it has a number can relate it to the earning how much it earned. And the next is a recent news table. It gives the recent company news, include the cost save, URL, and the post date. And for the post date, we can just get information about the recent news about each companies people want to invest.
Perfect. So at the close here, overall the app was great. We thought it was really user-friendly. We did have a few ideas that Robinhood could implement just to expand their reach on the market. The first is to include securities not based in the US. Right now, they largely just have securities based in the US, and they also have some limitations on users being from outside of the US. So we would definitely say they should expand that market as they're continuing to grow. Another suggestion we had was they could add advertisements to increase their revenue. This isn't something we would be in favor of because it would definitely slow things down, but it would increase revenue that they would be bringing in for the company. And then the last thing would be to include other types of securities, so mutual funds, futures, options, and Forex securities. Right now, they just have about 5,000 securities that you can trade. And so as they grow, they can definitely include more options and bring more users into their mix, since they'll be offering a lot more to the users.